Of the Astro Witch podcast. Today we're going to be talking about Mars in Virgo, Venus retrograde, and Mars leaving Venus alone. At the time of recording this, Mars has officially moved into Virgo and it has left Venus behind in Leo. We'll also be talking about Mercury in Leo and just generally the upcoming transits. As of July 11th, Mars has left Venus in the house of Leo and gone into the house of Virgo. Mars is a participating triplicity ruler for Earth signs, so Mars is actually slightly happier here versus Leo, although it does lose the accidental happy dignity of having a friend there to support it. When Mars is between 22 to 28 degrees in particular, it will be in its own bounds, and during that time it will be more able to work. Just so you know, I did do a full breakdown of all of this over on Patreon, so if you'd like a little bit more about what these transits can mean for you, check out the Patreon. You also get early access to the podcast. So Mars being in Virgo brings a little bit of action to the slower, patient Virgo energy. The energy of Mars taking action and severing away with that which doesn't work works kind of well with the Virgo energy of like working towards perfection. However, it's a little bit of a slower, patient work than Mars is used to. And that's another reason it can work well. It can be very balanced. For some people, though, it can feel like pressure. And for others, it will feel like exciting movement in an area of life that usually takes more careful planning. So it's important to find a balance. A balance of not dragging your feet in a way that annoys the Mars energy, but not pressuring the Virgo energy. And I think that middle ground is what a lot of us will be working towards in this transit. The time and space where action and planning meet up. On July 11th, which is when I'm recording this, we also have Mercury in Leo. Mercury in Leo will be with Venus, which gives it some accidental dignity. So Venus will lift Mercury up and allow us to communicate in ways that bless us and others. Leo energy is, if I'm shining, everybody's gonna shine. That Lizzo lyric always reminds me of Leo energy. Mercury and Venus both being here is really projecting some of the lovely support and communication that Venus can give. And I think that this is a much needed time of loving communication that we need before the Venus retrograde starts. During this time, we can communicate in gorgeous, loving, passionate ways. We can experience mental support and connections within our relationship. And it can be a very flirty time. But do be cautious with the flirting if you're starting up new connections, because Venus is about to station retrograde, so new connections may not be super stable. The flirty relationships that you start now, you may find yourself wanting to back out of pretty quickly in the future. However, flirting with people who are already present in your life should generally be fine. This is a great time to make art as well, because both Venus and Mercury relate to art. Venus can relate to the aesthetic of art, the beauty, the physicality, the pleasure of it. Whereas Mercury relates to the creation of it, using our hands to make something. Mercury relates to writing, but it also relates to speaking and artistry. So this is a really wonderful time to find the balance of those things. And for example, a creative writer can be very blessed during this particular transit because it's the creativity of Venus combined with the action and mindset of Mercury. However, Mars is going to be missing Venus. Mars is in a happier place for itself, but misses its friend. And then Venus also loses its sect mate, but it will be joined with Mercury, who will actually treat Venus a little bit better. On July 23rd, though, Venus is about to station retrograde, and we are already in the shadow period of this Venus retrograde, meaning that the things that you're experiencing now are showing you the very energies that you'll be going over on July 23rd up until September 10th, I believe it is, during this Mercury retrograde. We're currently going through the degrees that Mercury is about to turn back around and start going through. So everything that's happening now is a reminder of what we will be refining. So the things that you start now, let's say you start art now, you may need to go back and refine it later. And let's say you start a new flirtationship now, you may find yourself questioning that later. Let's say you leave a relationship now, you may find yourself backtracking once Venus is stationed retrograde. The sun will also be in Leo. So when the sun comes into Leo, it's actually going to be taking care of Venus during this retrograde, which is lovely. The sun is in domicile here. So the ruler of the house of Leo comes home and it notices this like sad retrograde breaking down Venus. And it says, don't worry, it's okay. You can take a break. It's like when your partner comes home and they see that you have had a really hard day and you're stressed, but they're in a good mood. So they're able to take care of you. They make you dinner. They bring you a fluffy blanket. They put on your favorite TV shows. Or if a friend were to do that as well. That's how the sun and Venus are going to be getting along in the house of Leo. On the other hand, Venus may even give the sun a little accidental dignity, but at the same time gives the sun a little bit more to do because it is stationed retrograde in its own home. So Venus will be operating in a slower, not at full capacity, but the sun will be there at least at first to offer resources and support where necessary. In general, though, this transit just means being cautious around flirting with new people, breakups, makeups, changes in your appearance, and new artistic endeavors. In the house of Leo, it becomes especially important to be aware of your hair and your confidence, but you're also going to want to look at which house it's in. Like if you're a Leo rising, this is going for through your first house, so it is going to be more so around self-love, self-care, self-confidence. Versus if it's going through your 7th house, you're going to be feeling it more around your relationships and your partnerships. If it's going through your 10th house, you may be feeling it around the creativity that you put into your career. So I think this can be a good time to start new things if you're going to be very light and playful. But if you recognize you have patterns of clinging on to things, holding on to things when they're supposed to be leaving, that is the time to realize it's, figure out what your focus can be, basically. Especially once the sun ultimately leaves. The sun will not be staying here forever. The sun is only in Leo during Leo season. So as great as it will be for Leo season to start, and it will help Venus out, once it's gone, it's just going to be Venus there going backwards, overthinking, worrying. In the sign of confidence and leadership, these are the areas that Venus will be struggling to express. So which areas of life do you need to show up as a king, queen, what have you? And which areas of life do you feel like you could potentially be struggling around confidence? If you use the wisdom of the sun and communication of Mercury, I believe you can ultimately make it through. But be playful and light. Don't expect things to stick. And here's the other thing. Leo energy is fixed. So whatever area Leo is in your life is an area that you may be very passionate about and where you want things to stick. If you are a Leo rising, you're very passionate about who you are and you feel like you have a good idea of who you are. And this Venus retrograde asks for you to be playful and try out new aesthetics and try on new aspects of your personality, and that can feel uncomfortable. If you have Leo in the 2nd house, then you like to feel very sure and certain and protected around your money. And this retrograde can make you doubt that. It can make you wonder, should I be making money in a different way? Should I be saving in a different way, spending in a different way? And the fixed energy of Leo, along with Venus saying we are going to be doubting and fickle and overgoing the same things again and again, just may not work out in the most fun and loving and easy way. Now, if you are able to be playful and light, I think a lot of good things can come from this, because this is the time to experiment, frankly. Like, try out the new art thing, but don't feel like it has to last and become your livelihood. Try a new temporary aesthetic or go back to an old aesthetic that you loved, but don't make the permanent changes. Like, don't get a tattoo, but get a piercing. You can take that out later, Try to go with the flow, even if the flow sometimes feels like surrendering to crazy rapids, basically. And going with the flow is not Leo energy. Leo energy is very bright, very domineering, even with a little bit of control, because Leo energy can see a big picture and know where the light needs to go and how to be most helpful. But during this time with Venus going backwards there, Leo energy may think that it knows those things when it doesn't. So this will be ending in September. I'll be talking about this again in the next podcast when I talk about Virgo season upcoming. But for now, prepare, go with the flow and slow down, because this can be a great time where you ultimately experience necessary changes and leave behind what needs to be left behind once Venus does station direct. As long as you aren't set on permanence, I should say, I think this can be a really great transit for a lot of people. And as a Leo rising myself, I hope I don't eat those words later. Thank you so much for watching the Astro Witch podcast. If I were to give you a little witchy advice right now, I would say focus on glamour magic, because both Venus and Leo speaks on that. And your glamour magic may not feel like it's the best. Your makeup may not feel like it's the best right now. But that's why it's cool to try new things. Like, try out new ways of doing your glamour or doing your makeup that you haven't tried before. And the whole point of magic is to mitigate difficulties in our life. Like, that's a big point of magic, I should say. So if one of the areas of life that's struggling right now is your glamour, is your confidence, is your appearance, then doing glamour magic to feel more in love with yourself or to feel more confident can ultimately be one of the most helpful things we can do. If you do want some glamour magic routines, I share a lot over on TikTok, and I can definitely share more. Let me know in the comments.